Today we're looking at Angela's best crosshair settings, ability tips, and an overall starter guide for playing this character. First things first, we're going to do the thing we always do, the tradition on this channel, the crosshair. I'll be honest, there's not much to do in terms of crosshair design for this character because she is all about melee, and there's no travel distance on the attacks. There's no specific sort of limitations besides you need to get within 7 meters to do damage. Now, there is one thing to talk about. She actually has a large attack radius, and by that I mean the hitbox for the attack is a lot bigger than you'd first think, especially in flying form. So basically, you don't need to necessarily aim on target. So I've created this circle to kind of just give you a bit of extra information if you want to know where you can hit targets. In case, you know, maybe there's someone flying in the air and they're a little bit tricky to hit. You can just know that you're going to be able to hit them as long as they're in that circle. It's going to give you a little bit more confidence. You're not going to have to try too hard to be on target, so to speak. But honestly, besides that, a nice green dot always does wonders. So we'll go through these settings really quickly. A lot of people get confused about this. All of my crosshairs are always circle and crosshairs. I'll go through the settings now so you can see. Make sure reticle animation is off. And then we will go through the settings here. This has a dot and a circle. The crosshair opacity is 0. We don't need the crosshair there. Going through. That's all the settings. Very simple for this one. Now let's talk about some tips and tricks for Angela. So she has 2 forms, essentially flying form and ground form. And this is changed by using the third ability, the E key on PC. It is called Divine Judgment and Wingblade Ascent, depending on if you're on, you know, it's pretty straightforward, right? When you dash into the air, you don't really provide much attack value, you just enter the flying state. But when you land, it will do damage over time in this radius, which is pretty cool. So it's a good way to initiate a potential fight, all right? So when you're in the 2 different forms, you have 2 different attacks. When you're on the ground, you have dual axes. And every 4th attack will actually send you a dashing forward a little bit and do extra damage. So, you know, pretty standard stuff for melee characters. When you're in the air, you've got a spear. It has a pretty slow attack style, but you can build up charge. You see that little arrow there as you're flying along, and when it goes gold, you're going to do a knockback and a lot more damage. So you can initiate a fight as a tank by essentially, let's say you're going to take the front line, right, and you want to try and maybe focus on a specific enemy, a duelist maybe, or a support. Obviously, remember, you are a tank, so this is important to keep in mind. You're going to be a sort of like a flex between dive tank and holding front lines, right? If you want to dive, you can basically take an angle, go in, and grab them with you, and then potentially take them back into your enemy's backline, right? It's kind of like a flying Wolverine in a way. Let me show you that again. So, an amazing dive potential here, right? And as long as you aim up high in the air, they're just going to keep flying forwards until you run out of the stamina bar. So try not to aim into the ground because you might accidentally drop them. And make sure that when you're about to do this dive, the bar on the right is fully charged up because you will drop the character as soon as the white bar ends. So if you want to kidnap, you essentially get ready, you zoom in, you go, and then remember to hit your spear because that's going to do another knockback and also a large amount of damage. Now, when you're sort of traditionally playing in a fight and you're going up against a target, this normal attack is pretty slow, right? So typically, you're going to want to be on the ground. But if you're not on the ground, you can actually cycle between your shield like this. This is another ability that she has. This shield will block damage. It absorbs damage. We can have a look here. So if I go to the spot, you don't take any damage until your shield is broken, right? Now, if you want to sort of play the front line with Angela and you want to kind of get a bit closer, remember that you could use the shield to walk up, right? Or you can just do a 4 attack 4 attacks with this, and then on the 4th attack, you'll charge towards them. So if you need to, you don't necessarily have to just run up to them. You could, as you're walking up, go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're in their face, right? And then if you need to back out, you can just walk like this. It's a good way to do it. Or you can just fly into the air and pretty easily get away as well. Now, another really cool thing about her abilities is her ultimate. It's going to create like a banner that will pull people towards it, and when you leap, it'll do more damage, right? There's some very cool things that you can potentially do with this. For example, let's say I go into the air, kidnap a player, bring them this way. I can then chain them to the wall, right? Okay, he actually got stuck up there, but he's going to have a little bit of a hard time getting away, right? Here's an important playstyle tip for Angela. She is anti-flyer. There are so many flyer duelists in the game now, and even a flying strategist, right? And as a tank, you have limited tools to really take them down. So don't be afraid to just fly into the air and just take the fight straight to the duelist, right? It's going to provide so much, like, distraction to this duelist. It's going to slow them down. It's going to stop them from causing pain and suffering to your team. So just take, like, imagine that this is how you play a tank, right? You front line, but in the sky against the flyers. Don't forget that. You know, you can, of course, use this ability to go and create dive opportunities as well, but always try and sort of just go head on against the flyers as well, because you're going to be able to really divert attention, create off angles, and just split attention between the enemies by just sort of taking that charge towards the duelist. And remember, you can use your shield whilst flying, right? And another really cool thing is you get pretty fast speed whilst going through the air, whilst still having the shield up, and a lot of maneuverability. So this gives you a lot of power to really get up close and personal against those flyers, and it completely changes the meta for flying characters. And I want to bring more attention back to this bar, okay? So it charges up whilst you're flying, but once you've charged it up, you can stop. You can wait, you can prepare. It doesn't disappear. It's ready to use whenever you want to do it. So you can just fly around a bit, wait for that bar to charge up, and now you're ready to strike. And this gives you a little bit of a combo potential here. So you build up the bar first, and then you essentially go in for the attack, and as soon as you attack, you hit the dive to the ground, and then follow up with your axes, right? So it basically, you primary attack, dash to the ground, and then axes. And you're going to get a decent amount of damage. Her damage overall isn't the best, but she is a tank, so bear in mind, she's not going to necessarily go around and just absolutely eliminate people, but she can use her movement to kidnap, she can use it to dive, she can use it to absolutely bully flyers, which is something the game needs. Flyers are just so meta right now, and she can, you know, hold her own. She doesn't necessarily have the most tank potential either. She's not the strongest tank, and she's not going to get as much sort of defensive power. So you're really going to need to work together to chain her flying, her shields, and sort of be a very flexible tank where you're going to have to be wherever you need to be at the moment. Whether that's flying in the air, taking down flyers, diving to try and take the support maybe, and really create a bit of a change in flow in the current battle, or just holding frontline and going up and taking progress on the objective. You've got to do all of those things at once sometimes with Angela, and if you can do it well, you're going to be rewarded massively. She is a very flexible tank that does all the tank roles in one. She's a master of nothing, potentially, but a jack of all trades. So getting really good with her will mean you're able to just make up for any lack of tank potential in your team, whether it's teammates that don't really know how to play tank or the fact that no one else wants to play tank. She could be the one, so keep that in mind. Amazing Angela players are going to absolutely dominate. I'll say it now, but she's going to have a very sort of high skill ceiling. It's going to have to take some time to learn. It's not necessarily that her skills are hard to learn. It's knowing when to be in the air and deal with flyers, when to dive, and when to hold the front lines. You're going to have to go between these three things all at once, if that makes sense. Hopefully that's given you a bit of a starter idea of how to play Angela, what you need to be thinking about, and some basic tips to get you started. You have fun, and I'll see you in the comments. Cheerio.